Video games like Postal.
Going Postal.
Going Postal. New video game. It's called Postal.
There are a lot of people that really wish we would go away, but it's never going to happen.
Their whole premise is so over the top. It's so ridiculous.
There was a video game called Postal. We just ran around shooting people.
Oh, this is going to piss off your viewers, isn't it? Oh, well.
Going Postal, The Legacy Foretold. A new documentary about the history of running with scissors. Streaming this spring. Pre-order now. Go to goingpostaldoc.com. That's goingpostaldoc.com. Tell them In the Keep sent you. So why are you sick? What did you do?
I had kids, and my kids are just kind of chambers of diseases.
Yeah. Do they regularly socialize with other children?
Like once a week.
Okay.
Like they're small, so they don't go out super often, but they go out more often than I do.
You're kind of remote, you're kind of out in the sticks a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Did you tell me that the nearest proper grocery store is 1.5 hours away?
That is the closest Costco. We do have I don't know if you have them in America, but a superstore. Well, we have a Walmart 30 minutes away or 40 minutes away
in America.
I know that you have Walmart in America. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's just you'll have convenience stores. A lot of, if you're really out in the sticks, a lot of gas station type places are also, minimalist grocery stores. They have kind of the stuff that you.
Yeah, our gas station has milk.
Yeah.
And that's about it as far as groceries go.
Ours has everything. You could buy marijuana in the gas station. It's insane. I don't think it's real marijuana, but they also have, those pills that make your ding dong stand up and stuff.
We have those in Asian markets.
That's interesting.
Yep.
There's a lot of stereotypes there that I'm not going to visit for the sake of speaking publicly, but yeah, there's okay, I'll just do one. Is it rhino horn? They grind up a rhino's?
I have no idea what it is. I've just been in Asian markets and I've seen donkey weed and there's all sorts of things, I suppose. But I don't know what it is.
There's a genuine herb that old people take it's called horny goat weed.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just good old Eastern medicine. It's Oriental overkill, if you will.
yeah, I suppose so.
So you're working on Viscerafest. It's coming out really, really soon.
Yep.
How did you and Osric become pals or coworkers? Are you still pals?
Actually after this long, I don't know. No, we are. But we met because there was a fellow that went by Bounty X Snipe. He was making a multiplayer arena FPS sort of deal. It was also a hero shooter. This was also before Overwatch, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But he was making a game called Nexum, and he did the YouTube devlog sort of deal, and then he put out a video asking for people to help him. And so I was going to help him as a level designer, but I eventually took over some of the programming work.
You have a pattern
Osric,
of
yeah. Osric was I don't exactly know what he was going to contribute or if he was just following the project or something, but he was in that vicinity. And so we started to communicate from there because he was making Viscerafest at this point in the Blender game engine, and I thought it was pretty neat. and so we talked a little bit, and I kept bugging him about porting Viscerafest to Unity. Also, to go back to Nexum, like it ended up
Another
not working out.
pattern you have, bugging people to port things to Unity.
That is true, actually. I still do it.
Yeah.
But
So you
I'm
guys,
kind of the maker of my own demise as far as getting hooked onto projects that take too long to come out. But that's okay.
So was he already working on Viscerafest and kind of like, you're just, hey, let me get my hands
Viscerafest
on
was
that?
almost done. Like it by the time that we decided to actually port Viscerafest to Unity, like all 3 chapters were finished. And the
And that
reason that
would
I
have
kept bugging
been
him,
probably the 8th time that the game was done or something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And I kept bugging him to port it to Unity because there were a lot of engine quirks that he couldn't get around. And he isn't a programmer, so everything that was in the Blender game engine was built with I think they call it logic bricks or something, but it's yeah, it's like a rudimentary form of blueprinting, I think. For example, like if you stood on a slope, the player would start sliding down the slope. And it just there were just a few things that felt a little bit awkward. So
Yeah.
that's why I was bugging him to port it to Unity. Also,
Yeah.
I wanted to work on a project that might come out, and that was almost done. So I thought that, hey, that's good.
Little did you know.
Little did I know that
Yeah.
a month or so later he'll tell me, what if we added this instead?
Yeah.
And then that just kind of continued. But
And that was, what, 5 years ago now?
that was in 2018. So
Jesus.
that was
7
7
years.
years ago.
Yeah. And you guys were kids. You guys were children,
We
basically.
were both 17 or 18, depending on the time of year.
I gotta say, it was your 24 now? 23?
That's right, 24.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you were dramatically more grown up than I cannot say the same about Osric, but you are way more grown up than I was when I was 23, 24.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you just didn't have a childhood, I guess, but
Yeah, I guess so.
maybe it is because you had a childhood that you didn't continue to have a childhood into your adulthood.
Maybe I just got all of my childhood in, really early,
Yeah.
and so I didn't feel the need to, drag it out for super long.
Yeah.
I will say that in the past 2 years, I feel like I've aged, 30 years. But it has always kind of been the case that I've gravitated towards, acting a little bit older or trying to act a little bit older. I'm sure that I wasn't super successful when I was, 13, but, all of my friends were always I had 2 older sisters, and they, had their friend group that I kind of, attached myself to against their will, probably against their wishes. So all of my friends growing up were, 4 or 5 years older than I was, but
Like, when you were 17, you had, genuine technical skills that were gonna lead you to having a career and doing something useful, or at least
yes.
that makes
Yes.
money. And when I was 17, I was, uh, in the backyard of my friend's trailer, we were hitting each other with shovels and steel chairs and pretending to be WWE wrestlers and shit.
Sounds like you had a lot more fun than I did, but
It was probably, um, it was probably fun. I don't remember a lot of it, probably from all the head trauma, but
yeah.
there's some video footage out there of just, some stupidity and everything, but and then even when I was 23, 24, I was, doing a podcast talking to other people like you who knew what they were doing, and I was just, drinking beer and "Tell me how you do that."
Yeah.
"Really? Huh, a game. How does that work?" "A
That ended up
program."
working out a little bit for you, though.
It did work out for me, but I think I failed upwards. I think I had the opposite of your slope problem. I was sliding up the hill by accident, just the whole
Well,
way.
you
But no,
still
man,
went
it's really,
upwards, so
uh, I guess, it's really cool though that the game is finally coming out because I was just telling the missus right before I came back out here, like, God, I've been fucking following this game forever, like forever. It feels like all the way back to before the first Realms Deep. I mean, I was already a fan of the game, and then of course, it got picked up by Fulcrum after Realms Deep 2020, the first one. That was kind of like the shining beacon of like, look, it works. We got a fucking indie game publisher. Like it,
Yeah,
it actually
we're a whole Realms Deep testimonial.
true. That is
Doesn't count for much anymore, but you know, maybe
think-
something similar will come along.
I think it is really cool though. Like this game, considering like you were saying earlier, like it had been done and done and done. Like Osric had been working on it for his whole life, I guess, since he was like what,
Yeah, since he was 12.
13?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just continued to go on and on and on, and now it's like it's almost over, and I'm worried about like what is he gonna do now?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if he knows, but
I
he
ca- it's like his whole identity. Like, what do you do?
he keeps saying that this is going to be like his only game, but then he'll message me and be like, "Hey, what about this idea? Does this sound good to you?"
Yeah, yep. I mean, it'll
Yeah.
probably come to you both. You'll know.
We'll
what to
see.
do.
He'll work outside the games industry for a little bit, and he'll get married and have children, and then when he's 50 years old, he'll be like, "I kind of want to spend 20 years making a game again."
Dude, it happens.
Yeah.
Like MK Schmidt, he didn't even start making games until he was in his 40s. He was just like an artist before that, just a fine artist, sculptor, doing like graphics stuff for companies and shit to make ends meet. And then in his 40s was like, I'm going to make this really ambitious fucking space game. And then he started on that. And then like years afterwards, No Man's Sky came out and he was like, shit, they took my idea. It's amazing what these kids can do with their technology.
Yeah, that's right. Just sucked it out of his brain.
Nah, it's so cool though, man. I think that's what's interesting about indie games. Is like there's just so many different types of people from different walks of life that like come to it from a different angle. Like if for a story like this where it's like I've been working on this game since I was 12 years old, man. There's another guy that's like I didn't even fucking pick up a game engine until I was an old fart. I had 7 kids already. And you can just do that. And there's also like, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I have to say that it's interesting to see people from like the film industry and stuff also come into games and then make their game and then go back into the film industry. But
Airdorf.
I don't know if he was. Well, I mean, I imagine that you said that because he was part of the film industry, but
Yeah, he was like a film movie guy. I don't know that he was directing fucking feature films or anything, but like when I first talked to him, he was studying film, and
Right.
then that's where all that rotoscoping stuff in Faith comes from.
right.
And he had most of his like portfolio were like these games that were sort of interactive trailers for horror movies on IFC.
Right.
Do you guys have the IFC channel in Canada?
No, we don't. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
some of them were pretty cool, but it was kind of like these similar in art style to Faith, but like very minimalist kind of games. And you could go to a film festival and it'd be like, here's a game that's like a trailer for a movie. It's kind of a brief, interactive kind of like version of the story. And then like do Faith, and then probably take all his money and go do some other shit. Jahar also big film and TV guy.
Yeah. I mostly just know about what Unity is. Unity's kind of done this thing where they attach themselves to people coming into the game industry from the film industry, and so they'll like promote their games and whatever. So that's like my familiarity with the crossbreeding, if you will.
Good marketing. I mean, it's just whatever gets you that kind of flair and celebrity and inspires young people to come give it a shot. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Unreal obviously is just completely tied to film and TV now, especially with all the Disney stuff that's come out in the last several years. Like they've fully gone that direction, so it makes sense that other game engines would want to say like, "Hey, we can do that too," or "We have the same kind of interest from people in this industry," or whatever.
Yeah, the big difference is like Unreal is pretty competent at it, but
well, there's smoke and mirrors everywhere.
Yeah.
But that happens in like everything, you know. It's you make choices based on like what's good for optics and what brings new people to the table. Like if you were just marketing to fucking indie game developers, trust me, I've been doing this podcast for a long time. Will not get you that much attention.
No.
But what you want to do is bring people from that are not indie game developers or not fans of indie games to the table to learn about the thing that you're selling. So like the analogy I always use is like wrestling, where it's like the people who are gonna tune in and watch every episode of Monday Night Raw are a given. They're gonna do that. You got to put The Rock on so that my mom wants to watch.
Right.
And my grandma would be like, "Ooh, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. I liked him from that fucking Baywatch movie or whatever." I'm like, yeah, it works a lot.
See, where that doesn't apply to me is that my indie game is so great that it's just going to automatically do that, and I don't have to worry about marketing.
Right. We're gonna talk about that in depth now because I hate when people say that. I fucking really irritates me. I cannot think of one single fucking time that that's ever worked. And all of the times that people point to where they're like, well, this game just like, that's all they did. I'm like, no, they didn't. They spent like a decade building up a community around it. And then the reason why the Steam algorithm picked it up is because they spent a decade building up a community around it.
Yeah.
It's extraordinarily rare that you just like make a game so good that it speaks for itself without telling anyone about it.
Especially with how many games are coming out now. Like, even if you point to an example, like even Minecraft, which, you know, what you're saying still applies to Minecraft even, but even if you ignore that and you say, well, Minecraft did it. Well, that was in like, what, 2010? That was 15 years ago. That's a way different time, way different marketplace than what
And
we
they
have.
made an extraordinarily large sum of money off of merchandising and advertising. Like,
Mhm.
arguably, probably more than they've made off of selling copies of the game Minecraft just on marketing shit. You know, yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's is like probably sold more T-shirts than games for all I know.
Yeah, the whole like horror games that are geared towards kids that totally aren't geared towards kids are
Right.
like that's their entire franchise is just merchandise.
Well, it's the Star
not
Wars
like-
model
Exactly, yeah.
or Kiss, the rock band.
I didn't even know that.
Do you know?
Are you just saying that Kiss just appeals to kids?
Are you aware of the rock and roll band Kiss?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I
like,
know that you have to ask that when I like don't know about something, but yeah, no, I'm familiar with Kiss.
they're a really great rock band. Like I love their music, especially like their first 5 or so albums. But like they made their money with fucking merchandise, like selling face paint kits and masks and costumes and action figures and doing movies and shit like that. Like if you can't,
I think that the peak of Kiss was just before my lifetime or before my like
Me too.
awareness. But
I mean, like neither of us were in Detroit in 1977 at the peak of Kiss's career, but
well, that's where you're wrong.
yeah. My dad might have been there. I think he saw like Spinal Tap open up for Kiss at one point. He was like,
Oh,
"Yeah."
that's crazy.
It's one of those like old man stories, but point being, they made all their money off of fucking merchandise and advertising, and that is what got kids to love Kiss. They're like,
Right.
you know, I can dress up as them for my Halloween costume. Same thing with Star Wars. Like I could be R2D2. I want to buy the Lego set. I want to fucking have every action figure and all that stuff. And like, you know, you have a multimedia franchise is the technical term for this.
Mhm.
Or if you want to get like nerdy about it, like Dot Hack was a multimedia franchise.
I don't know what Dot Hack is.
It was just like, honestly, it's a pretty deep cut, but it's like it was an attempt at making an anime into a multimedia franchise. Like we're gonna have a game, and then we're gonna have a movie, and then we're gonna have a, you know, this and that. Pokemon, the greatest multimedia franchise of all time.
Right.
How much, you know? Yes, they make a lot of money on video games and mangas. Yes. Do they make a lot more money off of toys? 100%. And everything else that they've done with that fucking thing. You can't walk through a grocery store without seeing a Pikachu or something. And that's because they figured out how to scratch that itch that makes kids scream and yell and kick and tell their parents they want something. And that's the one guaranteed hook into someone's heart. Like, they can't say no to their fucking kids. Right?
It's true.
Yeah.
My kid actually just learned how to say please like a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And if he pulls that out, like I can't say no.
Cute.
All of my like duties as a disciplinarian just go out the window.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You got 2 of them now. I'm very
Yep.
proud of you.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I'm very proud of myself too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work giving birth to those kids.
You had sex. Congratulations. 2 times.
2 times.
We were all betting against you, man. But no, like, how does that worked with you, working on fucking video games and shit, and then, like, trying to be a dad and be a husband?
Pretty well. I'd actually say that it was easier for me to work from home after having kids than working from home before having kids.
Why is that?
Because now my wife is distracted with our children, and so she doesn't have to ask me to hang out with her every like 30 minutes while I'm working.
I'm writing this down. Let me grab my notebook.
This is only really a problem if your wife is like at home, but
nah. I mean, sometimes. Don't get me wrong. She is at home from time to time.
she
works
comes
out
visit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we got a pretty good, like, I think, thing going on where it's like we were really both like kind of respectful of each other's careers and stuff. It's like, you gotta do that. I gotta do
I mean, we
this.
got married pretty young, so there was like a lot of things to navigate, and then like working from home is kind of a new idea for like both of us. We live in a place where that doesn't happen like super often. Like most of people around me are like farmers or manual laborers. Things
What's
you
that
can't really
like?
do like at home. So
Like when you're at church or the marketplace and it's like you're surrounded by rugged men with
yeah, and then they ask what you do, and you're like, "Well, I program things," and they're like, "Oh, like the tractor navigation systems," and I'm like, "No, like video games." Oh, like the kid stuff, and
like,
yeah, that's
or like farming simulator.
yeah, like farming simulator.
I'm actually here on a research mission. I'm studying you.
I'm studying you. You're a specimen. Yeah.
Yes.
And then they start acting right. No.
You're listening to KEEP in the Keep. Please take a moment to tell at least one other person how much you enjoy the show. That's right. Grab that link and send it to that buddy you're thinking of who you know would be interested in what we're talking about right now. Maybe post it somewhere. I know it seems scary, but you can do it. I believe in you. Don't hesitate to leave a comment and a 5-star review, a like, wherever you're listening. And if you want, Patreon supporters for this show get episodes early, access to our secret Discord channel, chances to suggest questions to our guests, our games, and whatever else I can do for you. Every little bit helps. This podcast directly supports my ability to do what I love and take care of my growing family. The link is in the show notes. Thank you, bless you, stay in the keep.
I feel like I'm the same way, like especially with my family because all of my brothers are like manly men, like fucking rugged beer belly, dudes with real factory jobs and shit like that. And then me, I'm just like, yeah, I fucking sit in my garage and tell people to move things a little to the left or to the right. Sometimes like put a little purple in there.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like, when I was visiting my parents or whatever, I would often be working from either my laptop or my phone, and then they would always be like, "What?" Like if somebody asked them, like, "What does Tyler do?" Like, well, he just seems like he just yells at people all day. It just seems like he just is on his phone yelling at people to do whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing. I'm like,
you're a portable foreman.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. But with that, I can always pull the military card. I could be like, yeah, well,
right.
I serve my country. All that stuff.
Yeah. I did do something masculine at one point in my life.
Make 2 children twice.
That's right.
It's about as masculine as it gets.
Yeah.
Um,
Unfortunately, a lot of like unmasculine men can also do that, so I can't really pull that out super often. But
no, but
um,
I bet it makes
I
for
think I just need to build a house. If I can build a house, then I can program the rest of my life, and I'll always be able to say, "Well, I built a house once."
Have you ever done any construction work before?
Like not really. Like my dad was he did flooring for most of his life, and now he's doing like wall protection and stuff like that.
It's a
So
hard
I've
job.
like helped him with that, but I haven't done anything like on my own or that I would consider like actually doing it. Like I've always been like under the instruction of my dad, but um, and it is a hard job. He basically doesn't have working knees anymore.
Yeah,
That's an exaggeration, but they're pretty busted.
it's a job where you're on your knees or bending over and carrying heavy things a lot. It's just kind of like
Yeah.
if you're doing tile or carpet or whatever, it's it's rugged. It's man's work for sure.
Mhm.
Um, I
Yeah.
worked as
You can
a
always measure the amount of masculinity a job requires by how broken your body is at the end of your lifetime after doing it.
right. Like
Yeah.
if you're 50
The
and
measure
you
of a
look
man's
70,
quality is how
yeah.
his body doesn't work.
I figured out just really young, like I don't want to do that. Like I
Yeah.
don't want to be like I feel like time has changed. Like when I was a young kid and my grandpa was 50 years old, he was basically dead, right?
Yeah.
And then now 50-year-old men look like Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, steroids does contribute to that.
But I mean, like that's kind
But
of
I do get what you're saying. Yeah, they do look like a lot healthier.
like a
Not like they're
50-year-old
gonna
man is
like
still
roll over in bed and die.
living their life, so to speak.
Exactly.
Whereas like when I
Yeah.
like my grandpa was like he worked in a chemical plant for
Yeah.
his entire life, and it was just like when he was 50, he was an old man. Um,
Yeah.
uh, and
Yeah,
I
50 is the
hope
new 40.
I'm I'm almost 30 now, and I just feel like extrapolating through time. When I'm 50, I'll probably be not as healthy as I am at 30, but I'll be not
Healthier.
broken.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. No,
yeah.
for sure. I
Um,
uh I actually started wanting to do construction stuff like when I was really, really little.
mhm.
Like my dad, you know. But then, I started getting into my teens and I was like, no, like programming's way cooler. I want to do that. But now after I've been programming, I kind of want to pick up a trade, you know.
I think
Um
that's a great thing to do.
and
For
I like the longer I work on games, the more I wanted to like build stuff with my hands, Like I have a schematic of like a toy chest that I want to build my kids. And every time I think about it, I'm like way more excited about that than like any game that I wanna make in the future.
I've
Um,
always had to have hobbies like that. Like I
yeah,
cannot. I was not made to be like a person at a desk doing
yeah.
office work.
No, I think the longer you neglect that,
Mm,
the stronger your desire is to like actually sweat. But
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, when I was originally doing this podcast, I was probably slightly younger than you are now. I was like, my obsession was building bicycles. Like, I had my
no,
garage was just bicycle parts everywhere, and I was always working on one, buying a new bicycle and then refurbishing it, and then getting in way over my head and having to go to the bike shop and like ask a young lady to help me unscrew something that I didn't know, and she's like, "Oh, it's just the other way around," and I'd feel like an idiot, and then I'd pay a lot of money. Uh, it turns out like bicycle maintenance is actually not as simple as you think it is, but um, it was a fun hobby. I only have one bicycle now. I managed to tone that down a lot. Um, or whatever. I just get obsessed with shit. Like
yeah,
whatever. Honestly, this whole video game thing might just be a really long term obsession of mine that goes away at some point. And
yeah.
I feel like
I go ahead. Sorry.
no, that's it.
Oh, well, now I'm embarrassed because I don't know what I was going to say now. So it seems like I just interrupted you for no reason.
um, I think you were gonna say something that you were obsessed with.
Video games mostly. Yeah. I get sad thinking that like I won't I won't have like a desire to work in games or like play video games, but I've already like felt the desire to play video games like wane like a lot. And I don't know if that's like I don't want to play video games because like I'm just not interested in video games as much as I was, or if it's because I just don't have time for it. So there's other stuff that I'd rather be doing. Or if it's because I make games. And so when I'm not making games, I kind of want to get away from them. But it does make me sad to think about because I always like imagine myself as someone who like was always up to date with whatever's coming out, like whatever new game is being released and um, being interested in that. But that's kind of I after what generation was the Xbox 360 and the Wii?
The one after the Xbox and the
Yeah, I guess so. Whatever generation that was.
at
After
the
the
time
Wii
it was
came out,
next gen.
yeah, that's right. The next gen, like 3 gens ago, after the Wii, actually mostly after the Wii U came out, because I was a Wii U kid. I was really
Did you
annoying
play
about it too.
Spotfire on the Wii U?
I didn't, but I did know about it because there were only like 7 games that came out for the system.
Yeah.
But I was the annoying Nintendo kid that everybody would be talking about like their PlayStation 4 playing like Destiny or something like that, and I'd be like, "Well, did you know that the Wii U actually has Lego City Undercover, and it's like way better?
Yeah.
Um, did you know Lego City Undercover is like way better than GTA?" Uh, but the after that generation was over, I kind of just got sick of keeping up and didn't play as many games. But I don't know because I still get really excited about like revisiting an N64 game. I play Paper Mario 64 like once a year, at least, and then I still like playing like Buck Bumble and Sarge's Heroes and stuff like that, and I'll enjoy it. I'll enjoy doing that much more than like I don't know playing a I don't know what's out right now, but I'm playing any modern game that I've tried to play. And I know a lot of people will say that that's nostalgia, and maybe that's it, but I don't know. Maybe nostalgia is what does it for me. Um,
I
but
also
that's
think
that.
that there were just some fundamentally really great games.
I think so. I think like I mean I think that it would be dishonest of me to say that Sarge's Heroes is a fundamentally great game, but it is fun. It's nice and simple, and maybe I'm just dumb. Maybe I just like simple games, and games are too complicated for me now.
Well, I mean, considering working on Viscerafest, it makes sense that you would want to play simple things like that aren't
Yeah, that's true. Nothing that'll
extraordinarily. Yeah.
yeah yeah
I was,
nothing that'll break my arm trying to like aim.
it's actually been a while since I booted it up, so I did for like a little while before we got on the call today, just to like, remind myself of what's going on with it. And this is what it
Yeah.
looks like, this is how it plays, and all that kind of thing. And it is an extraordinary. I should actually just only say nice things. So first of all, it looks fantastic. It is a beautiful, very, very pretty game. The voice
Well, I'm
acting
glad
is
you enjoy the
tremendous.
thing that I didn't do.
The UI is tremendous.
It's bad in the version that you played. Just wait
What?
until you play the new version.
Looks professional. It's crisp. All of the effects and everything. The exploring
Yeah.
and the locker doors opening up and gobbling up eggs and cookies and muffins and all that stuff. And it's just so much wonderful things. The aliens saying cute little things and all of that stuff. And it in no way reminds me of Ion Fury at all. And um and it is it works. It's crisp, but it is extraordinarily hard. There's no
Yes.
reason for this. That
Yeah.
game, I feel like a little bitch playing that
Yeah.
game. I
I
beat Doom Eternal on like the hardest difficulty, and still Viscerafest is like, ugh.
I will say that I agree. I think that the game's too hard, and I don't want it to be so hard. And that has been an internal conflict between Osric and I. That the game needs to be easier because see the problem with Osric though is that he doesn't care about money, and I do. So I'll tell him like, listen, I know that you enjoy playing the game like this, but like I kind of want the last 7 years of my life to somehow have some sort of justification. And so that would preferably be in the way of money.
I just
We
never
need to make this
understood
easier. And he's like, well, why do you even want money? Money's dumb. Anyway,
because he doesn't have children.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
No, I mean,
Maybe I
I
should
can
just drop
appreciate
off like some kid at his house and be like, "Here, care
I
about
can
money more."
appreciate the sort of like savant art side of things where it's like
Yeah.
the Stanley Kubrick, like I'm not making a movie for the masses or for the box office. I'm making a movie for the art of it. I
Yeah.
want, and I'll do anything I have to do to get there. What I get that, and I applaud it, but I also don't, in the context of a video game, like I don't understand what it takes away to just offer the easier difficulty. And then it's like, and if you want to make a fucking hardcore try hard game, you can just have as many upper difficulties as you want. You can
Yeah.
have you can even call it pipsqueak weenie mode if you want. Insult the people who like me who want to play the. It's not because I want the game to be easy. It's because I don't want to be playing the game for
longer than it needs.
longer than I need to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I play. It's kind of a catch-22. I play a lot of games for a short amount of time, and then I very rarely play games strictly for my own enjoyment, which has become a pattern since I got into this whole thing. But
Right.
so I try to like not necessarily. I'm not trying to like skim it, but what I'm saying is that I want to have the experience in a concise amount of time.
Yeah.
And
Well,
this
we did introduce a 6th difficulty. So
yes.
hopefully the 6th difficulty will be the one that most people can play on. But anyway, continue your thought.
Oh, I just mean that it's a choice. I mean, ultimately, it's his game. That's what he wants to make. That's how he feels about it, and it will speak for itself. And obviously, a lot of people really like it. For those people who want that in their game, that's great.
Mhm.
I personally don't understand why there can't be a pipsqueak weenie mode for people like me,
Exactly. Yeah,
so
that's
that I can also enjoy it and want to pay more money for it.
yeah. Yeah.
But-
Well, I don't know. He's changing some things with the balancing. So hopefully by release, we'll land on a spot where most people can play like the bottom 3 difficulties, and hopefully most people will be satisfied with that. And he
Yeah.
can have the top 3 difficulties for, insane people that are way younger than me in mind and spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They should have games should just have dad mode where it's like I have shit to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Listen, I need to be able to play this while my kid is asking me to cut him an orange,
right.
Yeah.
I've made a lot of enemies by playing Doom with a controller, and I play RTS games with one hand, and I just people get triggered. They're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I want to be able to eat peanuts and drink my coffee while I do this. I
Yeah.
don't want to. I thought all day. I don't want to think anymore. I just want to."
Now, you shouldn't be playing an RTS game if you don't want to think anymore, but
I mean, it's pretty easy to play Age of Empires 2 with one
okay,
hand.
you say that. I can't play RTS games. They're too hard. And that sounds bad because I'm a programmer, so the idea is that I should just be able to solve all these problems. But I don't know, RTS games they're too much for me. But I've also only played one. So, I don't know. Maybe I just need to play them more and find one that I enjoy playing. But
I lost all of my ambition, every ounce of the ambition I once had to prove how long my wiener was by being good at a video game is gone.
Yeah.
I'll do 10 pull-ups instead. If we're having that kind of a discussion or whatever. But yeah, it's I was addicted to Quake. It was a problem. I would come home as soon as I was home from work. I would play Quake until I passed out, and I was trying to get good. And then I just woke up one day and I was like, "This is not good for anybody. I'm not excelling in other parts of my life. This isn't making me a better person." And then I look around at the other people who I know who are exceptional at these things, and generally speaking, not where I want to end up.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
I mean, there are some. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of really great,
Yeah.
esports players that have a full balanced life and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, the upper echelon of really good at Quake is not people who are making a living and raising a family and shit. Like
Yeah.
most of the great players I know, when they had that point in their life, they're like, yeah, I don't do that no more. It's like a Friday night thing, but I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Because it's not like riding a bike. Like if you stop playing Quake for like 3 days, you suck.
Yeah.
You've been it's like AI like outrunning human thought. Can't do it.
Yeah, you're on your deathbed and you're trying to convince, the
Mhm.
people around you, no, I was worth something once.
Yeah.
That's a little dramatic, but like, you're not going to be thinking, man, I remember when I could insta-jib like everybody in the lobby, you know?
Yeah.
Now I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about because like that's not something that pros like talk about.
I don't know. I just
Whatever.
but when I'm 80 years old, like am I gonna look back at my life and say like, I harken back to the good old days of being up till 2 a.m. drinking Code Red Mountain Dew,
Yeah.
playing an arena shooter and showing everybody how good I was at getting the double tap with a shotgun or whatever. Like probably
The
not.
great thing about that is that it like transcends generations too, right? Because like
Yeah.
people that are just a little bit younger than me, or maybe even people my age, will be saying the same thing about like Fortnite, right?
Mhm.
It's like, well, maybe I shouldn't have gotten my like 300 victory royales. Maybe I should have invested in like forming relationships or something. But
Well, no.
I say that, and a lot of people are going to be like, well, you don't know that because I met my wife on Fortnite, and like it was really worth the while.
And
So
oh,
there's always like edge cases like that, but
almost just said something really bad, but I'm not gonna. Um, uh, my friend, our mutual friend Vince, he met his wife playing. Actually, he met her on like fucking 4chan for real, and it was like a World of Warcraft forum. And
well,
they're
that's a
happily
relationship
married to this
that's
day.
like worth having,
Yeah.
The great thing about that is if you do meet a woman that's scrolling 4chan, you won't be wasting your time.
Well, at minimum, it's like if both of you are in this same place at the same time talking about the same thing, chances are not a lot of other options out for either of you. So you're probably meant to be together.
That's right.
I thought I was getting a phone call, but it's my 11:30 wake up alarm.
Oh,
That's okay. I turned it off.
well,
But no, for real. Like people, meet people all kinds of different ways. I guess
yeah, for
for
sure.
me, it's just like I don't want to be like one of those dudes that's like a bachelor when they're in their late 40s and shit, and it's like they're always hanging out with younger people because
Yeah,
they want to do young people shit. It's like I want to be like going to my kids' graduations and
yeah,
like,
for sure.
and then playing like I still want to play games, but I want to like we were talking about a few weeks ago. Like I want to play more kids games now because I'm like I'm gonna this is the kind of stuff I'm
Yeah,
gonna share with
absolutely.
my kid. Like I look at something like everything I look at, I'm like, is this something I could do together? Like
Yeah.
I don't even want the nudie stuff in Baldur's Gate. Like I'm like, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
My character is 100% chaste all the way through. Like
Mhm.
totally, yeah. It does.
I
I didn't really know because I didn't do my research. I didn't realize that Baldur's Gate was so like Witcher 3 now. And so I told you like I'm playing the game as my wife. I designed my character to be my wife. And I'm making every choice as if I were her. And then I realized very quickly like I'm constantly getting hit on, which is probably what her real life is like. And I'm
yeah.
doing what she would do and turning it down every time, waiting for my soulmate, who is not an Illithid, who actually I originally designed the Guardian character as me, thinking that there would be a romance there. And then I realized he's an Illithid, and I was like, no, sir, there won't be any of that. So I put myself into an interesting predicament.
You've
All my
doomed
Baldur's Gate
yourself.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to play
And your
Doom as
future
my
children.
wife. She's probably way tougher than the Doom Marine for real.
Yeah.
She has,
Well,
unlike
she's
the Doom Marine,
military.
she has real military experience. Yeah. So just the whole experience of like working on the game for the last 7 years and all that. But let's kind of like take a take a little step back? Like when did you get into video games? Like how old were you? What
Video
was it?
games in general, I think like probably like 4.
Okay,
Um,
it's a good age.
yeah, my uncle had a N64, and my parents they ran a youth group. And when one of their kids one of their kids that attended their youth group, I think he either graduated or he was going to university or something like that. He had gifted them their N64 and a
Mhm.
bunch of games. And so I grew up playing the N64 with my sisters, and it was fantastic. Um, and actually, the reason that I got into game development, and I kind of hate sharing these stories because they're actually like always boring to everybody else.
Mhm.
But the short story is in Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, there's this room in like the second level in Hoth Base where you see the Millennium Falcon flying out of the hangar bay, and there's this like upper room window thing that you can never reach in the game. And I was always interested by like what was back there because as a kid I was like, this is a real place that it like exists. Like there's going to be some like sort of like computers or enemies or something in that room, even though you can never get there. Um, and so eventually I got kind of into like the idea that you could modify games, and that started with like game chart codes. So when I figured out what emulators were, I was like, I can play Shadows of the Empire, and I can give myself a jetpack in the game,
How
and I
old
can
were you
find
when
out
you
what's in
figured
that
out what
room.
an emulator was?
I think like 6 or 7, because it was before I started making games.
That's amazing.
Um,
I don't think I
yeah,
knew what an emulator was until I was maybe like 16, and only because I really wanted to play Chrono Trigger, and it was the only way to do it. And I didn't understand what it was. I just knew that I just had to click these
I didn't
buttons.
really understand what emulators were either. I just knew
Okay.
that you could play N64 games on your computer, but
That's what I thought
um,
YouTube was. I thought it was just Dragon Ball Z. I was like, this is where
yeah,
you watch Dragon Ball Z.
that's right.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I flew up to that room, and it was actually really hard to like navigate because that game had like a bunch of flickering issues in the emulator. Like the screen would flicker black like all the time. But anyway, I went up into that room, and I discovered that it was just like this like hollowed out like room, like there was nothing in it, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. And but that got me interested in level design, and so eventually, like when I was 8, I was like, what if I made my own game? Like games are made by people. And I had that epiphany like when I was looking around in that empty room.
Mhm.
Um, and so I started with like Game Maker and stuff like that, and typical like early game engine stuff that kids can kind of grapple onto. And then I started using Unity when I was 12. And originally I had thought of myself as like a level designer. And then I discovered that I hated level design, but I loved programming. So um,
I think
that's
I
kind of the short story.
I think I knew that games were made by people, but I think I thought they were only made by Japanese people.
Yeah, that's
I was
probably close to
like,
what I had imagined as well. Or at
I
least
just
like
thought, yeah.
I had this idea that like they were made by people. Like I understood that like as an intellectual level, like games didn't just pop into existence, but like
Mhm.
I didn't fully grasp what it meant that like people designed something. Like it's like that. I don't know if people have a similar experience, but it's like when you learn that like art is cool, you know? Like people create art and there's like some sort of human aspect to it. Like obviously when you're a kid and you don't really like explore that like fully. But when I learned that like art was made by people, I was really interested in the idea that you could like share stories through art.
Mhm.
And so that was before like I had this epiphany about games. But when I had this epiphany of that like games are made by people, it had that same kind of feeling where it was like, oh yeah, like somebody put thought into this and somebody like designed this for a reason. Like there was a purpose that this was designed for, right? And they had
I
thoughts behind that.
I guess I had that same thing, but it was about books for me. Like
Right.
I didn't I don't know, I didn't really think about video games as like a storytelling medium. Like I always wanted to tell stories, and I was like
Mhm.
really into reading and writing. Like so I had like very high reading comprehension level, and like all of my
You were smart.
you know,
You were a gifted kid.
all of my elementary school, classes, I was like the kid that, they give you like, oh, write a creative story and it's got to be 3 pages long. And I would like bust it out in the first draft, turn it in and get a really high grade. And then other kids were like, like, I don't know what to say. And I was like, I have shit. I'll never run out of stuff to say. That has not stopped, by the way. Like, I have so much I want to tell you. Like, there's be creative. Oh my gosh, it's my opportunity. I'm free to do whatever I want. And then I got into like theater too. So I was like in a bunch of plays and stuff.
That's fun.
But I always loved storytelling. I just didn't really put 2 and 2 together that like you could do that in video games until I was in my 20s.
You're listening to KEEP in the Keep. If you love this show and you love supporting indie video games, please take a moment to check out In the Keep's upcoming Stellar Valkyrie. Built in the GZ Doom engine, this retro first-person shooter puts you in the universe of space bird bounty hunter Falco, who is on a mission to save his ex-girlfriend from the evil Black Star cult. Just type birdgame.space, that's B-I-R-D game.space into your browser. Hit enter, smash the wishlist button, and stay tuned.
Yeah. I don't think that it was like that well articulated in my mind as maybe I described it. But yeah, similar thing is like anything that's made by people is like made with some sort of purpose, whether that purpose is to like just make money or whether that purpose is to tell a story or whatever. Which I think actually like both have value, and I know that that's like maybe makes some people cringe, but I do think that when people make things for money, it still does have some sort of value. It's not just like greedy, like that stingy corpo greed that people don't like. But
I very much had it in my mind that like what we were talking about earlier with like my game should just speak for itself, like kind of shit.
Exactly,
Like
yeah.
I just thought like if I'm very, very good at the guitar, I will just be a millionaire because
yeah,
that's what
I'm good at it.
All of my favorite guitar players are rock stars, so I will also just be a rock star, like obviously. And I was really disciplined about it too. I was like not fucking around. Like I'm not gonna do drugs. I'm not gonna like. I was like actually watching documentaries about like Motley Crue and shit, and like well, it seems like when they started doing cocaine, their music stopped being good. So I should not do that, and then I will continue to be even better than them. And then I did not stick to that plan at all, but I did get really good at the guitar, and I'm still not a millionaire. So I just picked up a new obsession after a while.
Yeah. Well, that's good though. I at the very least, you didn't become a millionaire with your guitar playing, but you can now serenade your wife with the guitar, right?
I always think about like I know a lot of folks get depressed when they like put a lot of effort into something and then they like get to the stage where they're like, I need to put that down and do something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I always feel like in my mind, I'm like, I always have the option to go back to that. Like
Right.
if I woke up tomorrow and just like, fuck this video game shit, I'm just going to write an album. I'm not going to do that. Or at least I don't think I'm going to do that. But if I wanted to, like I have the ability to do that.
You have the ability to do
I have
that.
the means. Yeah. I have money now. I could like record things. Like,
right.
The same whatever it is.
That's a very healthy way to think, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My buddy Chris, the Stellar Valkyrie guy, like he's the main character in Stellar Valkyrie, and he's one of those guys that's just obsessed with acting his whole life. Like it's all he wants to do. And then he kind of like, was going through a bit of depression and shit. Like he even came on the podcast and talked about it and stuff. But it's like I kept telling him, like, you don't have to just do that. Like you could just fuck off for like years. Go do something else. Go, like become a gardener or I don't know, washing machine salesman. I don't care. And then if you decide you want to be an actor again, just go back to acting. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
You don't have to put so much pressure on yourself. And I haven't had that kind of like put pressure on myself in that way in a very long time.
Right.
Do you remember when you got like your own console? What
My own
like what?
console? Well,
Yeah.
like that I didn't have to share with my sisters or what?
Well, I mean, I guess the question is more like you have one in your own home.
Yeah,
This is my
that
gaming
was the
system.
N64 that
Yeah.
my parents' youth group kid gifted us. That was
Okay,
like the
so
family N64,
yeah.
but I was kind of the only one that played like a whole lot of the single player games. Like usually like we played together, but I was usually just the one playing.
Was it
Um,
like in the living room or in a
yeah,
bedroom?
yeah.
Okay.
We it did end up moving to a bedroom, once we got like a TV in there.
Mhm.
Or once the family TV like graduated to my sister's bedroom, or my bedroom, it kind of switched places. But yeah, when we first got it, it was like in the living room.
Yeah.
At 4 years old, my parents weren't a huge fan of me having like a TV and a video game console in my room, but
It was very much a social thing for us too. Like,
yeah,
it's like what me and my dad and my brothers did
yeah,
together, like
yeah,
everything. Even if it was a single player game, it was like we're playing together and like passing the controller around, see if you can do that or whatever. Like when you're really young, they just unplug the controller and hand it to you and say like, "Oh, look, you're on the screen. Like mash
yeah,
buttons." Okay.
for sure. Like
Yeah.
definitely and that's probably why like I attach myself to video games so much is because like it played such a fundamental part in like my relationship with my sisters.
Mhm.
Um, because that was my favorite thing to do with my sisters, and it was the one thing that like I could count on to be fun to do with my sisters, whether I was the one playing or if I was the one watching or if we were playing like a multiplayer game together. Like it was one thing that it wasn't going to end up in a fight or like um, yeah, it was just a good time.
Were you player 1?
No, like I was the youngest that was playing at that time. So
Okay.
I was kinda there weren't, there were a lot of moments where I had, like, the unplugged controller,
Gotcha.
if you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Yeah.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I feel like that's something that's really lost now. I really hoping I can like just recreate that with my kiddos and stuff, but like I
Well, that
don't
was
see a lot
kinda
of
the
folks
death
doing
of
that.
split screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like even nowadays, like if you have a consoles, like they don't make split screen games so much anymore. And
Mhm.
if you want to play party games, you pretty much have to be into party games. It's like it's a genre, it's a niche
Yeah.
genre.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I should know. I tried to sell one. It's hard. And it's just like most people are just playing on the PC by themselves, or
Mhm.
and if they're playing multiplayer, they're like at one point, me and my friend were playing Counter Strike on 2 different PlayStations on 2 different TVs in the same living room, which is ridiculous.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
why? But it's how you
Yeah.
had to do it, and it was just like, it's not the same as it used to be, man. I have nostalgia
No.
for playing
No.
Smash with you, bro.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I get, like, that there isn't a whole lot of demand for split screen, but I also feel like maybe there would be if people still made split screen games, but there's a lot of technical problems that come with split screen too. But also at the same time, there were technical problems with doing split screen back then. It's just that like people had much lower standards for like, like if you play 4-player Mario Kart versus single player Mario Kart, you're going to notice the frame difference, right?
Yeah.
And that frame difference was acceptable back then because like that was the standard. That was like as good as you got it. But now like if you have to drop to 30 FPS because you're rendering 2 screens without like all the post processing and everything, then all of a sudden like the game almost isn't worth playing, which I can't really argue with. Like I don't like playing games that are under 60, but I still really miss split screen.
I just don't I mean, unless it's, like, particularly bad, I really never noticed things like that. Like, it wasn't until I started playing Quake that, like, I even knew what a refresh rate was. Like, what? Like, because I was like, "Why am I not good?" And they were like, "Well, it's because you're playing at, 720p,
Yeah.
30 FPS, and you have Wi-Fi." And I'm like, "What do
Well,
you mean? It's the speed of light should be fast enough." They're like, "No."
yeah.
And then I went down the hardware rabbit hole, and turns out I was just bad at Quake all along. I didn't need to spend all that money. It was just
Yeah. it's after you buy, like, you spend like hundreds or thousands of dollars upgrading your equipment where you're like, oh no, I'm just bad. Never
I
mind.
just spent all this money to find out that, in fact, I was just bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I don't know. I didn't even like know what a graphics card was. Like
Yeah.
I was like my friend helped me build a PC and he was like, "Okay, you have everything you need but a graphics card, so you'll have to get one of those." And I played games for like 6 months. Did not have a graphics card. I had a 4-core processor
Nice.
and I played The Witcher 1 and 2 all the way through with no graphics card, and I suspect that I was not supposed to do that because that thing got very hot, but I didn't know any better. And then I was like, I bought like a 1080 and I was like, this has got to be fucking, this will get me through the next lifetime. I'll never need another graphics card. And little did I know. But I think I always like, I don't know about always. I really gravitated more towards like, for me, games that I could just sit and play by myself. Probably because I was just more solitary and I got into it as an adult. Like I didn't play PC games as a kid. I played console shit with my friends. So I didn't have all these like obsessions. And I was never like the guy who got the new PlayStation or the new Xbox or whatever, because I always had a friend who had that. And I was like, why the fuck would I spend all that money when I could just go to my friend's house, and if I want to stay up all night playing fucking, Sonic the Hedgehog, I'll do it on his fucking TV. And his parents have pizza rolls. Like
Yeah.
and
It's
soda.
a better experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my dad was like weird. He was one of those dudes that would like forget to pay the power bill, but we would have like new video games. Like he made very strange choices. Me and all my brothers still joke about it. It's like, yeah, like the air conditioner wasn't working, but we had a fucking PlayStation. Like always.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if those are good priorities or bad priorities. I'd like if he's spending the money on the kids either way.
My father did not become an adult until he had grandchildren. Like he remained a kid until he became a grandfather, and then he became
that's probably
skipped
true for
parenthood and went
a lot of
straight to
men.
straight to grandfather. Which is cool. Like I still love my dad and everything. It's just, I probably shouldn't have been playing Duke Nukem when I did. Like
That's fair. Well, I grew up not being allowed to like play Pokemon or Harry Potter or anything, right? My
like
mom
a
was
religion
still
thing.
my mom was very much like into like the Satanic Panic thing, and I actually so Jet Force Gemini, N64 game about like you're in space and you're shooting like bugs or something like that. I can't actually remember the story, but the reason for that is because I wasn't allowed to play it, and my mom actually ended up burning the cartridge inside of our fireplace.
Nice.
Yeah, she was smoking the demons out. She's not like that anymore. Like we're all still religious, but she's not still in the 70s Satanic Panic. So
I think it's natural, like when you're a young mother to, or young parent
for sure.
period,
Like
just
be
to
super sensitive, that sort of thing.
overprotect, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a little bit extreme, a little bit, but I mean, I can't hold it against her.
In her defense, like I can't say that I'm worse for it. Like I don't think that I would be like worse if I had played Jet Force Gemini, for example. But her overprotectiveness did help in some areas. Like I can't say that I would have been better if I played Jet Force Gemini. But I can say that it's probably a lot healthier that I didn't like, watch The Ring when I was like 5, And I know like a lot of people are going to cringe at that and be like, well, I watched The Ring when I was 3 and I turned out fine. And it's like, well, that's okay.
I hate when people say I turned out okay. Like,
it's
you
like,
turned out
what
fucking
standard are we
okay.
using?
Yeah, you could be great. You could be Einstein, you fucking loser. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like my wife, she grew up being able to watch pretty much like whatever she wanted at whatever age. Her like content was never like, it was never monitored. And I can definitely say like, there are a lot of moments where like my kids like, well, my kids don't watch a whole lot of TV, but my toddler started watching TV and a little bit, and he watches like Mr. Rogers and like the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh that came out in like the 80s or whatever. And he's quite a bit younger than she was when she like started watching horror movies, but she still started watching horror movies when she was like super young. And there are a lot of moments where she's like, like it probably would have been very helpful if I had my content like monitored. Um,
I think
and I think what's
I
that?
think I would have been better off potentially had I not seen the Amityville Horror when I was like
Yeah,
9. Like that
probably.
that did not make me better at all. It
Yeah.
made me fearful of houses, which is just an irrational. 'Cause I watched
Yeah.
like Poltergeist. Speaking of which, my mother is calling me right now. I have to let
Oh,
her know. No, I'm not gonna answer it. I'm just gonna be like talking about you.
we
But
can talk about your mom, or we can talk with your mom rather. I don't
no,
know.
my mom had all the same stuff. She wasn't like particularly religious or anything, but she had like wacko, over. I was her first kid too, so she was
Right.
like I was the experiment. And then I would when I was in the Air Force and I would come home on leave or whatever, and all of my younger brothers, it would be like a fucking Wednesday night at 10:30, and they're all just like not home. I'm like, where are they
Yeah.
at? And she's like, I don't know. Like, what do you mean you don't fucking know? Like
Yeah.
I didn't go anywhere without you knowing where I was. She had my fucking Facebook password when I was,
Yeah.
like,
That's kind of the thing with first kids though. Like I can
yeah,
like my oldest sister, like she was definitely the most like under scrutiny and everything like that. I was the third
yeah,
kid.
yeah,
But even like how I grew up compared to how my younger sisters grew up, and there's like quite a big age gap between us, but so there was a lot of like parenting growth that happened between
yeah.
me and my younger sisters. But my younger sisters were allowed to play Pokemon. So
Right.
or yeah, anyway. It was actually funny. We were playing Super Smash Bros. And like I
Why
was
is wait,
at my
let's back
parents
up.
at the time. Yeah, yeah.
Why is Super Smash Bros. Acceptable, but Pokemon is not? Like, what's the underlying
I
logic
I
there?
I don't know. I can't
Is it
explain it.
because they're
But
called monsters or
I I don't know. I don't know what the whole Pokemon thing is. We'll have to go through like old
can we get your
like
mom on the
emails.
podcast? We should get both of our moms on the podcast
They can
together.
talk to each other.
They
Yeah,
can
and then they're gonna
talk.
convince each other that Pokemon's evil again, and then I'm not gonna be allowed to play Pokemon.
Yeah, they could
Um,
just talk about, like, raising, uh, their children and be like, "Yeah,
yeah,
my kid, he was a piece of shit, and that's why I didn't like it. He thinks it's about that, but it's really because, like,
I
he
just
didn't
didn't like
deserve to."
them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he didn't deserve to play Pokemon. I played
yeah,
Pokemon, and I hid it from him.
yeah. I don't know. Like the rules were really weird. Like we weren't allowed to eat Lucky Charms, but like we could watch like Narnia. But I
Mhm.
guess like there's the whole like, well, Narnia is an allegory and it was written by C.S. Lewis, so it's fine. I don't know.
But
I
so
don't
is
know.
Harry
It was
Potter, and so is Lord of the Rings. Like,
well,
they're
Harry
they're
Potter was written by a Catholic, and Papists are
Ah,
not the same thing
got it,
as
yeah.
Pentecostal
But
Protestants.
J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were also Catholic, so
I think Tolkien was a Protestant.
he was a very, very Catholic. He was
Oh
the
well,
kinda Catholic who
I'm
got
dumb.
upset when they stopped speaking Latin in mass.
Okay.
Like, when they started doing mass in English, he had, like, a conniption. He's like, "This is not the real church." Like, he was like one of those Vatican
Yeah,
II
yeah, yeah.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
And he
Got it.
converted C.S. Lewis because they were drinking
Yes.
at the same bar together, so,
Yeah.
um,
Um. Anyway,
any
I don't
Hoosiers,
know. I don't know what the stipulation was on like what made something appropriate and not appropriate. But anyway, we were playing Super Smash Bros. And my sisters had, without hesitation, chosen to play as Pikachu, and I started having heart palpitations in case my parents heard the announcer say Pikachu. I was like,
oh,
oh my goodness,
yeah.
they're going to tell us to turn the game off, but they didn't, and they were fine. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I
My
remember playing on the N64. Um, you have to like play as all the characters to like the bonus modes, like break the targets and board the platforms or whatever. You have to play all the characters to unlock Luigi. Um, and for the Pokemon, or well, I guess it was just Pikachu, that you had to play as to unlock Luigi. And so when we had to play as Pikachu, we turned the volume down all the way down on the TV, and we just like completed the maps like as fast as we possibly could, and like just we were just sweating. Like, make sure mom doesn't come in.
my
He's playing as a Pokemon.
my, grandfather thought all anime was Pokemon. Like
Wow.
anything that looked like Japanese animation was Pokemon to him, which
Yeah,
is fine.
that's
Like at
good.
least he was trying. But
That's good.
like I
That's
remember I
very
had
cute.
like a Goku Super Saiyan action figure, and
Right.
it was like Christmas or some shit, and I was like, "Grandpa, do you know what this is?" And he's like, Pokemon," and I'm like, "No, you fucking idiot! It's Goku from Dragon Ball Z, stupid!" Like,
That's good.
God, old people don't know anything. Like,
They're so dumb.
he was great. He's the best. I fucking love him.
Oh, Grandpa, you know how to operate a plow, but you can't teach me, or you don't even know
Yeah,
what Dragon Ball Z is?
you know how to cultivate soybeans from the ground, but you don't know what Pokemon is. Like, stupid, uncultured swine. Like,
This is why your generation keeps dying.
yeah, you could
This is-
rebuild
this
an
is why-
engine with your bare hands, but
This is why you're gonna die at 50 and I'm gonna die at 80.
yeah.
You're spending all your time doing all this useless stuff that's breaking your body.
It's so funny because like at his funeral, like I wrote a eulogy for him that was like about
yeah.
all the sacrifices he made so that I could live the privileged lifestyle of, you know, gallivanting around in the tech
Right.
world. He was really smart, dude. He like sat me down when I was like 10, I think. And he was, like I said earlier, he was working at a chemical plant. And
Mhm.
he told me, he's like, "You're smart." I'm like, "Thank you." And he's like, "You really need to learn how computers work." And I was like, "Okay, why is that?" And he's like, "Because the young people that work with me that know how to use computers get paid a lot more money than us that don't know that stuff." And I was like, "Duly noted." And then,
Wow.
as an adult, I was like, actually in the quote unquote tech industry or whatever, I remember telling him that. I was like, you may not even remember this, but you gave me that advice as a little kid.
Yeah.
Like you told me, like, this is the future. And he recognized that at least. And he wasn't one of those like learn to code,
Right.
into the
Yeah,
spectrum
yeah.
kind of folks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Huh. That's really cool, actually. I really like hearing about boomers being like insightful like that, because a lot of them were just kind of like, don't learn this because you're going to end up making more money than me and you're going to replace me at my job and you're a threat to my job security. So
yeah.
that's really cool. My grandparent, like my grandma, actually just passed away like month ago.
Sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, it kind of sucked. It was also like very surprising. Like she was mostly healthy, like as far as we all knew. But and grandpa, same grandpa that was attached to my grandmother, passed away 5 years earlier or 5 years ago. And they were very much like they were very against technology, much like kind of the way that my mom was about Pokemon. They were about like electricity. They weren't Amish or anything. Like they had stoves and stuff like that. But my grandma didn't have a Facebook account until like 3 years ago, and they didn't have internet until like, well, my grandpa never had internet. But like all the new technology, they were very avoidant of. But they were also like in other ways, they were very attentive to like the ways that the world was changing, and like a lot of it was like warnings against the ways that the world was changing, but a lot of it was also like, have you considered like getting into this and stuff like that, even though they were avoidant of it themselves. They were very good people. They were also immigrants, so maybe like Swedish boomers are a little bit different than North American boomers. But I love hearing stories about like grandparents caring that much about their kids that they're like, or grandkids, I guess, that they're looking at things that might not affect them personally,
Yeah.
but could change the course of like their grandkids' lives. But
No, I could complain about my family I could write a book, but
yeah,
they like nobody ever discouraged me or did anything to like get in my way about doing whatever I wanted to do. Like they were always
yeah,
my mom, like was working her ass off to save up to buy me guitars and whatever I was
that's
interested. She was
awesome.
always like, whatever it is that you want to do, as long as you actually are pursuing it. Like if you're gonna take it, and she didn't ever to her own credit, she never had to worry that I wasn't going to take stuff seriously. Like I took
Right.
everything as like an opportunity. And like if I have a guitar, I will learn how to play it. Like she had that guarantee that I wasn't going to be one of those kids that just you know, you pay $500 for a fucking Ibanez and it just sits in a corner and gets torn.
Yeah,
Not like that.
for sure.
But that's because she instilled that value in me. Like everything is precious and all that stuff. And,
Yeah. No, that's really good.
You're listening to KEEP in the Keep. Whatever happened to the good old days, when computer role-playing games spent more time telling great stories than stressing you out with season passes and needless grinding? Call of Ragnar is our effort to bring back the best in RPGs. Play in the immersive world as two friends adventure into a murder mystery that lands them in the middle of a battle between gods. Head over to callofsaragnar.com. That's call of SAREGNAR.com for more info, and be sure to wishlist on Steam.
I love my family like a lot. That's kind of like a dumb thing to say, but I'm really thankful for like, the childhood and even just now as like as grandparents, the role that they play. They're great. Love them a lot. They were, however, very not into the idea of their son being on the computer for like longer than 30 minutes a day. So they were very strict on like screen time limits and like all of that stuff. It's actually amazing that I ever learned how to program because my dad actually didn't even know that like I was actually programming. Like he thought that I was like I don't really know what he thought I was doing, but he just learned that I was programming like a year after I was employed at at Slipgate.
But it made you like see it as precious time. Like it made like the time that
Yeah.
you did spend on the computer, you were like, I need to make the best of this. Not
Yeah.
because most people who are like, just here's a computer, right? Like just do whatever you want. Their parents just left it that raised them.
Yeah.
They just take it for granted and then they never like develop anything out of it for the most part.
For sure.
So that's good.
And they were acting in good faith. Like they just didn't see the future in it. And they also were probably very concerned that like, like we call them iPad kids now, but they just didn't like want to raise an iPad kid. Right. And so they were definitely acting in good faith. But it still would have been nice to maybe have a game releasable before I was, however I was, never mind. I can't remember where I was going with that, but,
It's okay.
Sorry, I got a message and I got distracted.
I told you I couldn't say that on. It'll just be one of those things that the audience just has to guess. Like,
yeah, I guess so.
It was a throwback. I promise
to finish the thought so that it's not just hanging there. They were acting in good faith. Would have been nice if I would have been able to like program a little bit more, maybe have a game releasable by the time that I would like legally release it and get money for it. And it would have been nice to like not have my dad be like, "Oh, you're playing games," whenever I was like programming and like be all like demeaning about it. But they did just like want the best for me. They wanted to, see me grow into a functioning adult who didn't just play Minecraft all day, So
yeah. I think it's just balance ultimately.
Yeah.
It shouldn't. I don't think you should be like, don't do that ever. Like you can't.
Yeah.
Like there's always going to be those people. Like I have like an uncle who's never going to listen to this because he probably doesn't even have the internet. But like, he's one of those guys that he's been in like construction his whole life. He lives out in the fucking backwoods, and his kid is really fucking smart. Like his son is like probably a genius, but we'll never find out because he's like, you're going to grow up and be. You're going to build structures just like me and run a business and all that kind of thing. And, I was talking to this kid and I'm like, man, dude, you could probably get into tech. Like you're really wicked smart. Like you could do anything you want. And his dad's like, nope, he's going to be just like me and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, that's just dumb. Like, why? But in his mindset on it is like, I don't like computers. I'm like, why not? He's like, I don't understand. I don't, basically one of those people that like, I hate everything I don't understand. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like you were going to be like basically replaced by what you
Yeah.
don't understand. Like it's just a
Yeah, they're the ones that are actually having their job security threatened, I suppose. But that's like a mindset
Yeah.
thing. He could just change his mind. But
Yeah, he's not
yeah,
gonna.
yeah, no.
Hey,
Um,
Uncle Jim, I love you. No, he's a nice dude. It's just like that's kind of the mindset in that area. And
Yeah.
like actually recently one my mother's mom, I call her Nana. She had called me and she was like talking about my cousin. So he's like 12 years old. Jake. Hey Jake. And he also grew up like in the woods basically like on a farm way out in the boondocks and his dad is a logger, like basically a lumberjack. And that's the only thing he's ever seen a grown man do. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't other than like I guess a school teacher or a police officer, like that is the only option he's ever seen.
Yeah.
And now he's getting older and he's like attending public school and stuff and like getting to see the world and everything. And she was like, he told me like because he's always said I'm gonna grow up to be a logger like my dad. It's the
Yeah.
only thing he's ever said. And he told me the other day he wants to be a game designer, and I was like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
wonder where he got that idea from. But I think that's rad. Like, not. I mean, he'll probably change his mind, but I mean,
Yeah.
just the
Yeah,
fact that like,
I would advise him to not do that.
yeah, I just don't.
It's actually really funny. I was just complaining about my parents like disincentivizing my career as a game
Yeah.
developer, but like they probably should have listened to them a little bit. For job security reasons, but
Yeah,
I guess
don't
like
do that.
even
Join
though
the
they were
army.
like quote unquote wrong, they were still right. So yeah. Actually, sorry, continue.
No. You.
I was just gonna say, to be fair to like people that are parenting, like people my age, a lot of people my age will constantly talk about like how challenging it is for them to grow up as the first generation with technology because they feel all this responsibility to like be, responsible with the technology, and you kind of have to figure out how to deal with the world that we're living in now. But as your parents, they're the first generation to raise kids with all of this technology around.
That they
So
don't
it's like,
understand and
yeah,
have no.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like you have a better chance of figuring it out yourself than your parents ever did figuring it out for you. And that's just a circumstantial thing. Like there's very little that your parents could have done and there's very little chance that they would have known what to do in how to raise you when it comes to all this technology. Like there are definitely lines and extremes that we can say like, okay, like a kid that's on his iPad all the time, like, and has complete like mental breakdowns when he doesn't have a screen in front of him. Like, obviously we can say that kid probably shouldn't have an iPad in front of him all the time, if at all. But there are also like the not extremes, which are the most common, where, a kid back when like Snapchat was developing. And the idea of Snapchat was very obviously like probably something a parent shouldn't want their kids to be involved with because like just the even the implications of a application that you send pictures to other people wirelessly and secretively, and the pictures are supposedly like erased after 10 seconds and never seen again. Like that's the implications of that to me are very obvious. Maybe they weren't so much to older people, but something a little less innocuous like Facebook and I'm aware like there was like a lot of like information and there were attempts to get parents to understand things like MSN and online predators and stuff. But again, like when it comes down to most situations that aren't on the extreme end of things, it's very difficult to compensate for those things. Like
I put
how do
myself
you know
in.
that how do you know that like your kid talking to a classmate on Facebook could end up illicit or something or damaging?
I think about like if I put myself in my mom's shoes, right? And at the time, I thought it was like ridiculous. Like, why do you fucking need to be involved in anything I'm doing? Like, why do you want to look
Yeah.
at my fucking phone or whatever? But then if I really like rewind now, like if I was the same situation, looking at like my kid wants a Facebook page, and what I know as an adult is like I don't know what this is. I don't really know how it works. But what I
Yeah.
do know is that everyone's talking about how this is how kids get into porn and drugs.
Yeah.
And can easily do that and hide it from you, I would be concerned. I would be like, I do not want you. I would have probably been more strict than she was, because she was like, yes, you can do that. I just want to be able to like,
But again, that's like
oversight.
looking at things through like a modernist lens. Like you understand that
Yeah.
technology more because you grew up
Yeah.
with it. It was released around the time that you were starting to hear things from the world that your parents may not have, like they would have been listening to things like NBC about it, like
Right.
and so they wouldn't have had all of the I don't know like what the right word for it is, but like they wouldn't have had the direct exposure to these like upcoming technologies. Like they would have learned about Snapchat way later than you did. They would have learned about like Facebook messaging a lot later than you did, unless NBC did like
Yeah.
like a panel on it or something.
Yeah, it's gonna be some like fucking dinosaur like Larry King Live kind of situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, tell Mr. Zuckerberg, tell me about this book of faces you have. And
Yeah. Why
Well,
are you so interested in looking at people's faces that you have an
Right.
entire piece of?
Yeah, so you're telling me that people can message each other and post their pics on it, and
Yeah,
I
like
don't blame them. Like I
there's so
don't.
much information to parse there. It's quite tricky.
My mom like apologizes to me a lot now. She's
Yeah.
like, "I'm sorry for all that stuff," and I'm like, "I don't fucking blame you at all. Like I think you should
Yeah.
have been harder on me. Like if anything, you should have hit
Yeah.
me more. Like I deserved it.
and
Fucking
it's
shitty kid."
when it's happening, like it comes off so extreme. And as a kid, like you kind of feel like your parents like don't trust you, or like they think
Shouldn't have
that you're
trusted me. I
too
was a liar,
stupid, and yeah.
criminal,
Um,
literally. Like
as
just very naive to trust me at all.
well, I wasn't a criminal or anything like that, but like it in all those moments where like you feel like your parents are like not trusting you, or like they're being unfair, they are like genuinely trying to do their best. And hopefully as you grow up, like I kind of don't expect kids to be able to have like that kind of foresight that
Mhm.
because adolescence is kind of complicated. But as you grow up, like you hit 18, your 20s, hopefully it happens that early, maybe even earlier. That'd be nice. You realize like your parents were doing your best and they still love you, even though like you disagree with some of the things that they did. Like I don't think that it was great that like my sister picking Pikachu as a character in Super Smash Bros. Gave me heart palpitations, but like my mom was acting in our best interests, and in good faith, and she was like, no Pokemon. So hopefully as you grow up, like a lot of those things that your parents do, you can kind of understand and have a little like empathy for. That's not to like justify like actual like locking your kids in the basement and not letting them like over sheltering and the extreme end of that, but because there is an extreme end of sheltering. And I think that like at certain points in my life I very much bordered that, but I would never say that I was too sheltered. Well,
Yeah.
depending on your definition of too sheltered, like there was definitely like over sheltering that happened where I could have been exposed to things that like they sheltered me from, and I would have ended up just the same or fine or whatever. But I don't think that there was ever anything that I was sheltered from that damaged me in like any meaningful way. So
Yeah, I think there's just got to be like an appropriate pace for everything, and it's hard to nail. I mean, every
for
single
sure.
parent is gonna like, did this right, didn't do that right, or whatever, get
Yeah,
this or that. But
the point of all of that is you just have to have like a little bit of grace and empathy for your parents. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like if you like it, I'm still thinking about the whole Pokemon Harry Potter thing.
yeah,
But like if you were something that I kind of like grew to understand, my dad like had helped me to understand this, but like if you're someone who grew up without access to information and you have like people in your social circle or your church or whatever telling you don't let your kids read this book or watch this because it's literally the devil or whatever,
yeah,
I mean, you're going to take that shit pretty seriously. And it's
for
like
sure.
we as a generation take it for granted that we could just look that up and fucking debunk shit. But like my
Yeah.
dad was like telling me, he's like, dude, when we were kids, like whatever they told us at school and on Sunday in church was fucking it. Like,
Yeah.
or in the news was the newspaper.
Yeah.
There was like, and if you want to learn about history, you had to go to the fucking library, find a book, and pray to God it had anything accurate in it at all. Like, and I didn't even, in his case, like,
And it was like context sensitive. Like it made sense for your situation. Like,
right.
I think that, like I went to libraries and stuff, but I still had Google for a lot of my later life. I think that a lot of people younger than me probably have a very hard time of understanding actually how difficult it is to go to a library and to actually find useful information that makes sense for the situation that you're in, especially in regards to like social things. Like,
or
it might
worse,
be
they wouldn't know how to find a book in a library.
in a library. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
I make fun of my wife about that shit a lot because I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, if like the way that you acquire information, I'm still picking on her, but it doesn't matter. She'll get over it. But like, she's one of those people that if we're having a debate or whatever, she will Google like almost verbatim, tell me my husband's wrong about insert topic, and then the Google says, yes, your husband's wrong. She's like, see? And I'm like, that's not proof of anything. But I'm like, if you didn't have that, and it was me and all of your fucking friends, and the lights go off, we would be in the middle of town huddled up, and you guys would be burning encyclopedias trying to figure out how to make fuel happen. And I would be like, no, this is the book of sacred knowledge.
Yeah.
This is how we're going to rebuild society. And let me
Or
tell
worse,
you,
they're burning books that tell you how to
Yeah.
make fires
yeah, like
in an efficient way that doesn't like waste resources.
you would have a bunch of fucking 20-year-old people standing in a giant Books A Million and be wondering how to do things. And I'd be like, all of the information is in this room.
Yeah.
And they don't even recognize what's right there. Like, and it's not, no shame. It's the same thing that happens to every.
Because it's not super easy to access.
But I mean, it is. It's like if you
It's just-
don't know the
it's
Dewey
just a
Decimal
little
System,
bit more
and so like
complicated than Google.
you're like, I can't Google anything, therefore we're dead. I'm like, no, we just have to like find row number 12 and
We
take out
we have quite a track record of human history that tells us that we can survive without Google.
But we also have a track record of human history where people end up in exactly the situation I just said, like, and the Romans come through and they're like, oh, fuck all this shit. They torch it and you lose a millennia's worth of accumulated knowledge. Which is scary because everything lives on the internet now. And if people lose like genuine literacy and we lose the internet, then we have to rebuild from, we basically have to go back to the 70s and build back up.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary because we've made a lot of progress since then.
Yeah. On that note, though, I have to let my wife use my computer, and I have to go watch my kids.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the game coming out.
Okay. Thank you.
Yo, it was so great to finally get to have Elijah on the show. He's a great friend, and I hope that y'all enjoyed hearing from him as well as I did. I wanted to say thank you to all of our wonderful Patreon supporters. Shannon, Ant, Michael, Fred, Brad. Y'all are all incredible, and I thank you very much. And I wouldn't be here without you, so keep on doing what you're doing. Mwah. The theme song, as always, is by John of the Shred. Make sure you go check out Scythe Dev Team and all of their awesome games. I can definitely recommend Happy's Humble Burger Farm, one of their amazing games. I actually did a little voice work in it. And if you can find it and identify it and point it out to me, I'll give you a gold star. So yeah, do that. What else? Oh yeah, if you want to support the show, you can go to the support tab on InTheKeep.com, become a Patreon if you'd like, or you can buy me a book. It'll be in the article attached to this podcast. And yeah, it's just like an Amazon link with all of the stuff I plan to read. And I like to read, so I'll like you if you support that habit of mine. Much love. I love you. God love you. Stay in the keep. Forever. Go to InTheKeep.com for more.
Hi, I'm Ben, host of the Field and Foley podcast. Every episode I sit down with incredible guests, not just sound designers, field recorders, or musicians, but experts in everything about audio. We explore the creative process behind the sounds that shape our favorite games, films, and experiences. Whether you're an audio professional or just someone who loves great sound, Field and Foley offers deep dives, behind-the-scenes stories, and insights you won't hear anywhere else.